So good afternoon. We realise that we're at the back end of your conference. I hope you're all still awake. I suppose it's slightly different than everything else that's been presented. I don't claim to have great knowledge of what's coming next. I thought it was really insightful of what might come, but I do have a great interest in how people interact and what are they looking for. So who am I? I'm Claire Clutterbuck. I am the head of Insight at the Royal Academy of Arts on Piccadilly. And I've been working with Noah from Northstar. And what we'd like to share is some kind of innovative research of how that we conducted last summer on a very traditional show that's been running for is in its 248th year. And it was really trying to get under the skin of who comes to the Royal Academy Summer Exhibition, and almost trying to address that thing with, I suppose, with Google Glasses of what is it that they're after, so that when we think of solutions, and some of them were tech solutions, that it fits with that whole idea. So what am I going to do? I'm going to set out the story in a bit of 4 parts. I'll give you a little bit of context about the Royal Academy and the Summer Exhibition, and then I'm going to hand over to Noah to talk a little bit about the approach and the findings, and then I'll wrap up with some of the changes that we did, and then we'll have some time for questions and running away. I'm sure that is. So what is the Summer Exhibition? I'm not sure whether people are that familiar with it. It's synonymous with the Royal Academy. What's interesting is when we go and ask people about the Royal Academy, it definitely comes up. It's not universally liked. It's a bit of a Bovril or a Marmite case in terms of exhibitions, but it is in its 248th year. It's from its very conception that it was an exhibition to be run annually. It's the oldest open submission show. So what does that mean is that we're artist-led. So there's artists such as Tracy Emin, Richard Rogers, and Grayson Perry, who submit, but also we open it completely to the public, and they are judged by their peers to hang alongside them. It gives people a snapshot of contemporary art, and we have over 11,000 entries each year, of which about 1,200 make it to our walls. What makes it slightly different is the works are on sale, and it's important for us because it's the key thing that funds our RA schools, which are actually on site in Piccadilly, and it's the only free art school offer that's still remaining. What's interesting in that all sounds great, but also it's in Debrett's. It's a social occasion along with Wimbledon, Ascot, etc. And currently we get about 150,000 people coming each year, so it's not small. But let's see. Our challenges, we're going to be 250 years old in 2018, which to my view is fast approaching. And we're embarking on this huge redevelopment project. We're currently, actually the staff are currently off-site and not at the Royal Academy because we're changing the site and bringing the old Museum of Mankind and joining the two things together. And that's obviously challenging and will transform these historic buildings, giving us much more space. But at the same time, we've got lofty ambitions to look to improve the visitor experience. And what we really need to understand is the visitor motivations and the typologies. My role did not exist up until 3 years ago. And really, at this point, when we were looking at this research, people had very limited understanding of even who came through the door. And we only set up exit surveys and really quite basic research the October before the July that this was set. And I had only been a year in the job and had already been set the challenge of, oh, okay, great, we're new to research, but I want you to be world leading. So what I was looking for was innovative approaches and innovative partners with my department of one, this is me, to look at, and that's why we looked at Northstar, to come up with different techniques, which were maybe not so data-driven, that could really engage our internal audiences, which are slightly more creative and literally the artists. And equally, they were very strongly resistant to being focus group led and being able to be inspired almost by the insight rather than being told what to do, I suppose. The summer exhibition happens each year. There's 150,000 people that come. I hope it was very clear that this is key source of income to the Royal Academy. So we wanted a technique that was non-interventionist, that we could somehow get the information by not, I suppose, sticking clipboards and everything in people's faces. And we know that 1 in 2 of our visitors are friends of the Royal Academy, so they come very regularly. So as in, the cost was not just that we would detract these people to this exhibition, but literally our future source of visitors. And we're an arts organisation. We're not flush with cash, even though we're in Mayfair. And we were looking for something pretty speedy on a great budget. And we needed to see results. So the great thing about the summer exhibition is that it comes out each year. With our temporary exhibitions, things that we learn are very difficult to reapply to the next one. And from an internal point of view, very easy to say, but that won't work on this one. Rubens is not the same as Weiwei, which is just opening just now. So we had the potential of taking learnings that we could actually go, okay, well, let's try them next year. And then equally, we could see what happened and see what worked, how we could improve, and keep doing it really quite gradually. So that was the challenge that we laid down. And I'm going to hand over to Noah to say what happened and how he approached it.
Thanks, Claire. I think Claire approached us a year and a bit ago to do this study. And as we were having that discussion, Claire was new to the role. This is a rolling exhibition. And all of a sudden, the constraints got magnified in terms of what we actually couldn't do rather than what we could do. It had to be non-interventionist. It had to take into account the very well-informed and progressed stakeholder views that this organization had. And most importantly, Claire and we were discussing this early on, it had to demonstrate tangible results, because this is not something that goes away. It keeps happening, has been happening for 248 years, no reason it will not happen going forward. So there was this kind of urgency of demonstrating research. Just before I go into the slide, I was thinking aloud with Claire earlier on. Listening to some of the other delegates, I think what you'll notice in this presentation as we tell you the story is we will probably, in the front end of the presentation, come across as complete Luddites, in that we haven't used technology. There's nothing busy, shiny, or fast. But what will, as Claire comes to the back end of the presentation, some of the changes that have been put in place are, I think, in the busy technical space. So what is it that we did? We fell back on ethnography. This is something that has been mentioned in discussion earlier on this afternoon. In fact, the mobile variant of it in your kind of Dragon's Den situation. The way we were describing it for broader understanding within the Royal Academy was it is a method of doing qualitative research where the researcher aims at being part of the people studied. One of the things to mention is, alongside the Royal Academy and ourselves on this project, we were working with specialist advice from the Department of Anthropology at the London School of Economics. So we had embedded academic specialists with us who were hand-holding on a bunch of things here. So if that's ethnography, there are a couple of quick little caveats to throw out there. First, ethnography is incredibly time-intensive. So the people we were working with, in this instance, the person who was our principal advisor, had spent up to a year in the Solomon Islands to try and understand how particular communities behave. We didn't have the luxury of a year. Claire said to us that, guys, I can't have you, getting in the way of people. You have to limit it to a maximum of 2 days. 16 hours is all I can buy you from my stakeholders, because we haven't done this before. That's all we've got to work with. And we said, okay, so there's a time limitation. The next thing that we were working with is ethnography is typically a respondent-intensive piece where you spend a humongous amount of time with specific respondents or families, groups of respondents. And one of the things the Royal Academy was keen to get a sense of was how a broader brushstroke of visitors behave in the exhibition. So it had to involve a generous number of people. It couldn't be one family or a couple of families. So those were the kind of constraints. So we worked with the London School of Economics, came up with a specific response to this problem. And I think one of the things that was interesting was we devised it as a response to looking clearly at what we call the experience economy, where you experience rather than in a transactional service sense. What is microanthropology? It involves three types of activities which I'll discuss, but in essence, it's almost like a counterpoint to commercial ethnography as it's practiced. We had to do it quickly, and we had to do it with a lot of people. So that's what we tried to do. So what exactly did we do? The first thing that we did was what we like to call visitor simulation, which is observe across those 2 days, one in the middle of the week, one at the end of the week, a range of visitors as they walk through the summer exhibition. So the field workers stationed there were just mapping specific visitors walking through the summer exhibition, taking in different bits of the gallery. And obviously this was mapped later on. The second thing that we did was micro-observations, which is looking at a particular event over and over again. So imagine 400 people opening and closing a door, or like 250 people going in front of a particular art installation and walking away. So what we're trying to do is for a small, it's almost like a vignette over and over again. When you put that together, you suddenly start to see patterns emerging. And the other thing that we did was have conversations, again, micro-interviews, without getting in the way of people experiencing art, which were pretty much 2 to 3 minute conversations around what their experience was like, what motivated them to come there, and roughly the kind of people they were, where they were based. Did they have to travel far? They came with family, or was it themselves? So that's the kind of activities that we did. Quite a lot of visual evidence, video, as well as photography. The first cluster of photographs was to inform us about the context, so different times in that exhibition, in the middle of the week, end of the week, afternoon, evening. We got all of that captured. The other thing, we were photographing different types of visitors as they were coming in, whether they were solo, with family, as a couple, with groups of 2, 4, 6, because one of the things that the Royal Academy asked us to do was try and create a typology. So very quickly, so that's what we did. The analysis was almost like creating a crime scene investigation. So what we did was we had this huge amount of photography, a substantial amount of video, some amounts of customer testimonial. And what we did was we put it up on the wall. We created a mock exhibition room. And then the members of the team, there were 4 members, each of us took turns in analyzing each strand of data. And as we look at a particular typology of data, and this is all happening in collaboration with the LSE. So these are people who are informing us on how to do things and how not to do things, the biases to look out for. We look at the photograph, certain set of themes emerge. We look at the heat maps that we've created of the exhibition, certain themes emerge. And then we swap over. So the person who's looking at the photographs looks at the heat maps, vice versa, and see if there's it all stacks up. And it does. And what happens is we come back to the Royal Academy. I will not go into the details of exactly what we said, but we said a fair bit. But it was roughly carved into 5 separate areas. First was the idea of how the experience was for people as they walked in, what worked, and as they experienced the exhibition, what worked, what didn't work, what they found distressing, what they found helpful. The second area was we discovered, and we put it in front of the Royal Academy, that a number of visitors were coming to the exhibition as part of a family ritual, which is something that hadn't been picked up before. And one of the most interesting things was in the southeast of England, it's one of the interesting venues where boyfriends get introduced to mothers. And that was something that came out as an interesting adjunct. Obviously, was there too much art, too little art? Was the art curated correctly? Was there signposting? Wasn't there signposting? How things could be done differently? So a bit of commentary around art. Then this whole thing around, an art exhibition, anytime it's advertised in a clever publication like The Economist or something like that, it's a very intelligent looking man, always from the back. It's generally a bloke from the back looking at a single piece of art in splendid isolation. And what this piece of work was doing was debunking that is not how art is consumed, at least in this context. And the last thing we did was quite a lot of the thing about the Royal Academy is this shyness to talk about money. And we realized that one of the things that was happening in the summer exhibition was quite a lot of people were talking about the value of art and the transactional nature of it. So those were the kind of cluster areas where themes where we came back and reported back to Claire. And I'm going to hand you back to Claire to talk about what she did with the information and how changes happened in the Summer Exhibition 2015. Claire.
Oh, I'm going to steal. Oh, that's all right. That's all right. So Noah's been quite generous and kind of not mentioning some of the things, which is overall, the Summer Exhibition, think about 1,000. Has anyone been to the Summer Exhibition? No? It's an overwhelming experience. There's 1,000 works of art. It's incredibly crowded. And that's what came out of it, of going, oh my gosh, how am I even supposed to start on this? So that was number one. Number two is this idea of family, but these connections. We have 150,000 people that come each year, or there's visits, but we can't seem to get beyond that and trying to reach out to other people because it's almost like a closed circle. Yes, the boyfriend can come and get invited in, but no one else really thinks it's for them. And this bit about money, everything has a price next to it. You're given a little book as you go in. It's a really great game of trying to look up. We have no labels on them apart from numbers. You have to look up in the book. It's really very archaic and 248 years old. You look up the number, you find the artist, and then it has the price of art, which is a great conversation starter, but equally quite a lot of the fun. So as in, what's really interesting about the Summer Exhibition, another thing that they mentioned is the galleries are not quiet during the Summer Exhibition. So when we have Rubens on, everyone is incredibly studious, everyone is going through the learning journey. It's quite a singular experience. The Summer Exhibition is all about the conversation it starts, which is quite fun. And this is all from the observation. So what did we do? So for Summer Exhibition 2015, what I'm going to go through is some things that we changed, and then we'll get to the results at the end. So one of the first things is it's an overwhelming experience. Obviously, it's in the nature of it. If you're going to have 11,000 kind of entries to get 1,200 on the wall, it is going to be a salon-style hang. It is going to be big. But what was different about 2015? We had Michael Craig Martin, who is the almost like the father of the YBA. So he was the teacher in Goldsmiths that taught Damien Hirst and that generation of artists. And he was in charge of the Summer Exhibition this year. What he brought was a huge curatorial vision to the whole thing. So as in, I suppose his thing linking, not to be too simplistic, was all about colour. So we have very traditional galleries. We had a bright yellow vestibule, followed by a turquoise central hall, followed by bright pink and stripy stairs going up to it. So it was visually very impactful. We had 100 less images, but it was much more, I suppose, the way it was hung and the way that it was brought together was much easier to kind of understand and much easier for our visitors to talk about. Oh my gosh, you must go and see these stripy stairs. You must go and see these amazing kind of colours. And so there was something to talk about in some ways. The second thing was that I talked to you about this little book. We brought in a digital list of works. It's not revolutionary, and I'm sure you guys are thinking about things much more revolutionary, but think the organisation that we're in. So it was literally a list of works that you could search on your mobile phone. You could search the artist, you could find where it was, you could pick your favourites, you could have equally recommended tours by people like Sebastian Faulks, Grayson Perry, and I think Tracy Emin was on there, literally picking out their favourites. So as you picked your favourites, you could equally join. If one of your favourites was in their tour, you could see the rest of their tour. So kind of getting them to think about it in a different way and equally giving some kind of navigational aids to this idea of it's overwhelming, and equally that idea that I want to talk about it, which comes to the next one. Oh, no. So in terms of mobile, this was the first year that we allowed people to take photographs in the galleries. This is obviously hugely controversial in the gallery-going public's imagination, and equally that we're run by artists and a significant, well, all of them, display. They were the most difficult to get permissions of taking photographs, but we did it. So what did that enable us to do is that people could more easily share their experience. They could talk about it. They could talk about whether their son or daughter could have done that and really whether that was good value for money. And it all went out on Twitter, and we had a Twitter wall just as we went into the exhibition, so trying to promote it. What's kind of interesting is we also did in our exit survey, how aware were you of these various things, of ability to take photographs, that there were digital works online, that you could do on Twitter. This is our opportunity for next year. I think the people who used it did get a lot out of it, but that's our opportunity to make it, I suppose, a bit better known. And in terms of families, from our results, we've got 4 times the amount of families that came this year. It is admittedly from a very low base. It's a paid-for exhibition. It's not a drop-in kind of experience. There is lots of work. Some of it's pretty expensive and it doesn't have barriers around it, so you have to be quite strong-willed to come. And that's our opportunity going forward of how is it that we bring the next generation? We know that it's the key predictor of art going in the future, so it's in our own interests. So what were the results? Yes, we did all of these things. How many people came? We got the highest attendance since 1955 when we put on a picture of the Queen, which is quite fun, so how times have changed. And over 200,000 people came. And in terms of art sales, we were at 3 million last year and we made over 5 million in terms of art sales. So we didn't dilute, probably to do with being able to see the works when you've gone out of the gallery and being able to share with other people to check, hey, I want to buy this piece of work, what can we do? So that's where we got to, and these, I think, are our stripy stairs. So that was it.